I'm going to create a new document right now. File, new. And this document is going to have a DPI of 300 because that's what I want. And I think I'm going to make the height about 5 inches and the width, it doesn't matter really. I can make it 10 inches and I can change it later. But notice I changed this to inches. And the DPI is 300. I'm going to make the background transparent and hit create. So now I have this document. Let me just show you how big it is. There you go. That's the document. Okay. And I can always resize it later, but it's only about 5 inches high, but it has a very high DPI. Now, I'm going to make a face, but I'm going to just make it out of using shapes and these straight lines, okay? So here's the ellipse tool, and this time, if I hit the Alt key, I can just pull it from the middle, and it'll grow from where the cursor is right now. So I'm going to hold the Alt key, and I'm just going to make an egg shape for a person's face. And that's a really thin line. If I want it bigger, I can actually just type in how big I want it. Okay, 15, okay, how about 20? Okay, I think that looks good. Enter, there we go. And now there's there's my shape. I'm now going to make some eyes. Just pull this out, make some eyes. Okay, I want to make a nose, but I don't want the nose to necessarily be one of these shapes. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to start out with this egg shape. Okay. And then I'm going to do edit, transform, free transform. And see if I can play around with it a little bit. Okay. And what I'm finding is I really don't have a lot of leeway. It looks like a koala bear nose. I'm not in love with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just Control Z, get rid of it. Okay. And I've decided to go back to my brush tool, and I've decided to try and draw a shape. Now you can try freehand drawing it, but see how it says layer is not editable? That's because these are all vector graphics. So I need to rasterize this. I need to rasterize this. And I need to go to the background layer and rasterize that. Now they're all editable. So I like the idea of the eyes being in a separate layer from the background. So I'm going to call shape 2. I'm going to call this one, let's see. I'll call it right eye. And I'll call this one left eye. And I'll call this one head and nose. Because really the nose should be in the same layer as the head. The nose isn't going to move. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to try and just freehand draw a nose. So what I'm going to do is, let's see. I just had an idea. There's my ellipse tool. Let me do Shift and Alt, and I'll make a circle. Okay. Now I'm going to take that circle and I'm going to rasterize it. I'm going to take the eraser and I'm going to make the eraser a little bigger, and I'm going to actually erase part of the nose. I can do that now because it's rasterized, which means it's made of pixels. Pixels can be drawn and they can be erased. So now I have this. I'm going to go to my brush tool, and now all I have to draw is the nostrils. I'm not real fond of how I do that, so Control Z. I'm not really in love with that one, but the first one turned out good. So Control Z. I'm going to take this first one, and I can actually just zoom in here. I'm going to draw a lasso around it. edit, copy, edit, paste, edit, transform, flip horizontal. Let's see. See, there it is. I flipped it horizontal, which means I can now move it. Okay. So now I'm going to take this and I'm going to put it over here. And now I have my nose. But if you look, this is this layer, this is this layer, and then this is the head and nose. So now I need to merge these down. Merge down, merge down. Now head and nose are all in one layer and eyes are in a different layer. So let me go here and I'm going to rename this head and nose. Enter. Okay, and now I've got left eye and right eye. Now, I want to make the eyeballs inside the eyes, but I want them to be able to move. So I'm going to make a new layer, new, layer. And I'm going to name this layer pupils, because these are the pupils of the eyes, okay? So now I'm going to go here to the shape thing, and I'm going to actually make it filled black, okay? And now I've got this shape that's going to be filled black, and I'm going to make one ear. I'll hold the Shift key down and the Alt key down so that it pulls out a perfect circle. Okay, there it is. But I want it to be filled with black. So I just go there, fill black. Good. And now I want to take this and I'm going to do layer, duplicate layer. And now I'm going to take that second one. I'm moving it over here. Now, pupils and pupils copy are the names of these. And what I want the pupils to do is I want them to be able to move together. So I want them in the same layer. So I'm going to just go to pupils copy and I'm going to do rasterize. And I'll do this one, rasterize. And I'm going to take pupils copy and I'm going to merge it down with pupils. So merge down and I'll change it just to pupils. Change the name. Okay, now I have the right eye, the left eye, the pupils, and the head and nose. I now need to make another layer called mouth. So layer, new, layer. But this layer that's going to be a mouth, I'll put it down here by the head and nose. Okay. This mouth layer. I'm going to just play around with different mouths so I can actually play around with a person's mouth, like talking or whatever. So I'm going to make another ellipse, okay? I'm going to hold the Alt key, but not the Shift key. It's going to pull out from the middle, and I don't want anything inside it, so I'll make the fill nothing, and watch. Here's my first mouth. Okay, now I want to take this mouth and I want to just name it mouth open. So let me name it open mouth. And I'm going to just so I can add stuff to it later, I'm going to rasterize it. Okay, so now that's open mouth. And now I'm going to hide open mouth and I'm going to make another layer. Layer, new. Layer. And this layer will be smile. Okay, so now watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to my ellipse tool. I'm going to take open mouth and I'm just going to gray it out a little so I can see where to draw. I'm going to go here to layer 1, which is going to soon be smile. And I'm going to make another ellipse. Okay, and you'll see what I'm going to do. I'm going to actually erase some stuff later. This time I'm going to hold the Alt key. I'm not going to hold the Shift key because I don't need a perfect circle. But I do want to make it a smile. So Let me draw it. Now let me rasterize it. Now let me erase part of it. And how cute is that? Now I'm going to just move it so it's in the right spot. Okay. Maybe erase a little more. Okay, now it's going to be called Smile. And I'm going to go down to Open Mouth and I'm going to restore its opacity. Okay, now Open Mouth is hidden. Smile can be hidden for now, and I'll make Sad. Okay, so I'm going to make another layer. Layer, new, layer. Okay, now again, back to here. I want to see Open Mouth again at reduced opacity, so I can just kind of place the next one in the right spot. Okay, so again, I'm going to use my egg shape. I'm in layer 1, and I want to make a sad face. So again, I hold my Alt key so I can have it pull out from the middle. And now I'm going to rasterize it. And I'm going to take my eraser. And there's my sad face. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to Open Mouth and change the opacity to 100% so I don't forget. I'm going to unhide Smile. And now I have all these different things going on. Now, I may want to add hair or ears or other stuff. But right now, I kind of want to show you like animating this. Okay, so right now it's a very sort of crude drawing. It's not really something I'm in love with. But I made it just out of simple shapes. If I want to add hair, I could just freehand draw hair. I could play around with that. But look, I'm in the Open Mouth layer. I don't want to be. So Control Z. First of all, this layer 1 is the sad face, right? So let me not forget to name this Sad. Okay. Okay. Now, enter. Okay. So now let me go to the head and nose layer. And I think that's where I'm going to put the hair because I don't want the hair to move. I just want the hair to be in the same layer as the head and nose. So I'm going to go here. I'm just going to free draw it with my paintbrush tool. Or maybe make my line a little thicker. Okay, so let me just use my mouse and play around with making some nice hair. It could be very crude. It doesn't have to be perfect. But notice how, because it's something like hair where it's not really going to be exact, it's kind of fine to just use a mouse for it because you're just playing around. All right, now, I don't want it to be just a disembodied head, so I'm going to add a body. Again, I'm just using my mouse. All right. Now, when I'm done with this very crude drawing, and I know that this is a drawing that I could draw much more easily on paper, but right now I'm just sort of playing around. I noticed that the shoulders aren't even, so I'm going to do Control Z, and I'm going to just take my lasso, grab this shoulder here, and this is one of the nice things about digital art. Edit, copy, edit, paste, edit, transform, flip horizontal. And now I can take it and move it over here. And you can see that I can make make everything a little more even here. So again, I'm going to go back to the head and nose layer. I need to do a little bit of erasing here. All right. So now I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to connect these lines and they'll look a little better. See, it looks a little more symmetrical now. Now, I'm going to take this image, and it's only about 5 inches high, so it should be absolutely fine in the Wick editor. I'm going to unhide any of the layers that were hidden, and now I'm going to do File, Export Layers. Okay, and it gives me 8 exportable layers, and they all have these names except, what's this layer 1? Okay, this is that shoulder. So let me take this and merge it down with head and nose. Merge down, and now I need to rename this. We're just going to name it head. Okay, so now every layer is correctly named. File, Export Layers. Export Layers. Now it's going to be a zip file. So now you got to go to the zip file, and you've got to extract and extract all. If you don't do that, you're not going to have it. And just look at the number. This is called Assets 21. Extract. Ta-da. Okay? Now, I'm going to X out of here. I'm going to X out of here. And I'm going to go to the Wick editor. Okay. Okay, so now I'm going to launch the Wick editor. Try it. And this is really super important, guys. You have to go here and you have to save. You got to make it 1080. Otherwise, it's real low res. And let's name it. So I'm going to name it Face Experiment. Okay, so now apply. And then I can X this out. And I'm going to bring in some assets. So I go Upload Assets. And I'm going to go to my downloads, and I'm going to go date modified today, and I'm going to, there's my little folder here with all this stuff. So I'm going to start with head. I'm going to hold the shift key, and with smile, they'll all come in at once. So I hit open. If I hold the shift key and I click on the first and last one, it selects everything in between. I hit open, and here they come into the Wick editor. So the first thing I'm going to want in the Wick editor is I'm going to want a whole bunch of different layers. So layer, let's see, there's layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, layer 4, layer 5, layer 6, layer 7, layer 8. So the bottomest bottom layer is where the head and neck go. So here's the head, and I'm going to go to layer 8. There's my first frame in layer 8. I'm going to bring the head in. Okay, there we go. Now it's a little too big. That's fine. I can resize it. It's selected, and when I hit the shift key, I can resize it, and it will resize in proportion. If you don't hold the shift key down, it will get distorted when you try and resize it. But it's really only a little bit big for the image, so this is fine. Now, in layer 8, this isn't going to change. This stays the same the whole time. So I can actually pull it out to 20 frames and lock it. Now I'm going to go to layer 7, and the first frame in layer 7 is going to be the pupils. Let me bring them in. Okay. And they're too big. So if you hold the shift key down, you can resize them and they'll be the right size. Hold the shift key. Okay. Now, we're not going to lock this layer because the pupils will move. But I'm going to go to layer 6. Okay. And I'm going to pull in left eye. And now I've got to make the left eye smaller, so hold that shift key. There you go. Okay. Now, left eye in this case is actually not going to move either, so I'm going to do this. I'm going to pull this out to 20. And I'm actually going to lock it again. Now, I'm going to do the same with right eye. Now, right eye can be in the same layer as left eye because it's not going to move. So let me unlock this layer for a minute so I can pull in right eye. There's right eye. I'll position right eye, and then I'm going to hit the shift key and resize right eye. Reposition right eye. Okay, and now I'm going to just lock this layer. Okay, so now this layer is also locked. Pupils are not locked though, and there's a reason why, but I'll go into that later. And I'm going to go to layer 5, and I'm going to bring in, let's see, I think I will bring in Smile. I kind of like Smile real big and cartoony. So now I'm going to go to the next frame, okay? And I'm going to go to the layer that has the pupils in it. Make sure that's the layer, yep. Okay, I'm going to select everything. So I'm going to take the selection key and I'm going to go like that. All right, and I'm going to copy. I'm going to go to the next layer. I'm going to hit paste. I'll turn on onion skinning, and I'm going to take these and move them this way. Okay, now I'm in the second layer, and I want to take the mouth, and I'm going to do an open mouth in this, but I don't want the open mouth in this layer. I'm going to go to the layer that has mouths in it, this one, and I'm going to pull in an open mouth. Okay, and now I'm going to go to the third layer, and I'm going to pull in a sad mouth, and I'll line that up. Okay, now I'm in the third frame. Let me go back to this eye layer in the second frame. I'm going to select these. I'm going to do edit. I'm going to do copy. I'm going to go to the third frame. I'm going to paste them, and I'm going to move them this way. Okay, so now, again, this is a real short animation. I'm actually going to take these, and I'll pull them back for a minute just to show you. Okay. So now everything's just 3 frames. All right, so I'm going to turn off the onion skinning. And if I hit play, it's going real fast. Okay, so what I don't have is I don't have anything in between. Like it goes from this to this, but there's nothing in between. So if you go here, you can do something called add tween. Okay, and it's going to go from here to here to here, and it should help the transition. So let me try that also with the eyes. I'm going to add a tween here, I'll add a tween here, and I'll add a tween here. Now let's play it and see if it looks any different. So I'm not really thinking that it looks a heck of a lot different, especially the mouth looks a little weird. So I'm going to do Control Z to get rid of some of these tweens. Let me see if that looks a little better. Let's see. It's still not doing it for me. Okay, so this is another thing I can do. I can go here, and I had the frame rate is 12. What would happen if it was 9 frames per second? Okay, let me apply that, and let me look now, see if it's a little slower, it'll work better. All right. I'm not loving this, so I'm going to go here and I'm going to delete this. And well, let me just, instead, why don't I take, let me move this out a couple of frames. Why don't I move this out a couple of frames? I'm going to take this and I'm going to copy it and I'll paste it here. This was the eyes. Okay, hold on. Let me take this mouth. Copy the mouth and paste it here. And why don't I paste it again here so it stays in one thing for a little longer. Let me take this mouth. I'll select it. Okay, I'm going to copy it and I'll paste it here and paste it here, and it'll stay in the spot for a little longer. Okay. And the eyes, I'll go back to these eyes. I'll just select them, copy them, and paste them for 2 frames. Now, sometimes if you paste something for a couple of frames so it stays a little longer, it looks a little better. So I've slowed down the animation, but I've also doubled the frames. So now it's got it's giving you more time to look at each image, okay? So another way to do that is if I take each image and I just extend the length of that frame for a little while longer, if every frame lasts a little longer, and you slow down the animation, it might look a little better. So let me just I'm going to get rid of the onion skinning for now and hit play. And I see that there's a problem here with this. I'm just going to take it and pull it out. And I'll do copy, and I'll go here and I'll go paste, and I can move these a little. Okay, so what you're doing is you're actually purposefully messing around with the timing on your assignment. Okay, so let me hit play. So in this way, you can actually mess around with your animation so that it looks right. Okay? And this is basically how you draw an animation in Photopea. You bring the assets into the Wick editor and you mess around with them. Now, I ended up with more layers than I needed, which is fine. You can always go back and delete layers. So now that I realize I'm not needing all these other layers, I'm going to go here to layer 8, and I'm going to add another layer underneath. I'm going to call it layer 9, and I'm going to change the fill color to, I don't know, maybe like a nice pretty blue. Okay, and I'm going to pull out a rectangle, and it's going to layer 9. It's going to make the face appear blue. So there's that. But let me just show you what you're going to do here. I pull this out. Now the face appears blue. That's not good. So I'm going to now get my eraser, and I'll make my eraser nice and big. It's a 10. I can make it bigger. So I'm going to go in here. I'm just going to erase inside there so I get the face looking better. And I can make the eraser a little smaller to get into the neck. I mean, I could be more precise about it, but I just want to show you guys. Okay. So you already know about how to save a Wick project. You know how to export a Wick project. And we had been drawing pictures on paper and then scanning them into the Wick editor. But I also wanted to go over with you, what do you do if you don't have any paper, and how to just draw stuff in the Wick editor. I mean, in Photopea. And then bring it into the Wick editor. So you guys now understand how to import assets from different programs. You know, to import images that you drew on paper, to import images that you drew in Photopea. You understand about layers and how things move. And I just want to go over real quick inserting tweens. So a tween will help the transition between one frame and the next look a little smoother. So I'm going to just tween these. Sometimes I like tweening because it makes a smoother transition, and sometimes I don't like it. It really depends. Let me just turn off the onion skinning, and I'm going to hit play. Okay, so that's another way to get the pictures to move more smoothly between each other. What it does is it inserts kind of transitional pictures that look somewhat in between the smile and the frown and the open mouth to kind of give it a smoother look. So those are some tips and tricks for using the Wick editor and using Photopea. And sometimes, depending on how simple or complex your image is, you may very well want to just draw it right in Photopea. So, okay, happy animating, and I hope you enjoyed this tutorial.